You're listening to Two Guys Talking Wine with Michael Pinkus and André Prue.
As you can hear, there is no sponsor at the beginning of this episode of Two Guys Talking Wine, which is why we highly recommend you go to patreon.com/2guystalkingwine. We have added value. So not only do you get to hear Michael and mine's mellifluous tones every 2 weeks.
Oh, God.
You can now hear the unedited full interviews that we are... it's behind the paywall. You got to pay to get to it, but there's some good shit back there.
And it's getting better. Getting better all the time because there's more stuff coming. So, and not just Italy. There's going to be some French stuff.
And we're coming back to Ontario. We've got some things cooking right now.
Got some lineup. Yeah.
I guess I broke traditions. Just let... Michael.
Oh, geez. André?
How are you?
You said you broke with tradition, so usually you have something to say. You are saying very little today. So has the cold got your tongue?
I despise this winter. I mean, you know, I don't mind being my tough prairie self. I'm in shorts. I've been in shorts for most of the winter, but my God, like this winter's been miserable.
I've taken garbage out in shorts. I have taken recycling out in shorts. I have moved my car in shorts. But it's usually a very quick trip to wherever I'm going in shorts.
You know what I have literally been doing over the winter when we've had a miserable day? I have been checking my my devices to see where in the world could I tolerate living where the weather's nicer. And you know what one of those places is?
Don't know.
It's Italy.
Yes, Italy does have nicer weather than we have.
So, Michael, take me to Italy on this episode.
All right. So, André, I know we've covered a lot of ground in Italy over, the past year. We're probably going to do it again. I'm on my way there for a couple of months. But I don't think we've ever really talked to Vino Nobile. I don't think we've covered the topic. Do you remember covering Vino Nobile? We've done Tuscany a lot.
I do not, and I mean it is the challenge that I face. It's kind of like how you've said with France. Is so much of what happens in Italy is derived by geography. The places I've been to have stuck with me. So like I know my Alto Adigés, my French Accordas, my Abruzzos. But I've never been to Tuscany or in and around there. I've never been to Piedmont. I've never been to any of the other places. So I guess I got to branch out. But I do appreciate. I remember the wines that you've been bringing and the producers.
Yeah, you've been very excited about the wines. You've been very excited about Sangiovese. You'll be happy to know these wines are going to be 100% Sangiovese. Today we're going in depth with Francesco Carletti of Poliziano. Hit it.
The first DOC was created, so Vino Nobile DOC was created in 1967 or 68. So, but at the time, and to be honest, I think Montepulciano was. So I'm not the historical type of guy, and I wasn't there. But there is this beautiful book written by Soldati, which was an amazing Italian wine journalist, old school wine journalist, and I read the part where he talks about Vino Nobile and he used to come to Montepulciano way before that, in the 30s and 50s and 40s, and he was tasting wines from Contucci, which has been around for forever. He's been tasting the wines from Fanetti, which is another great historical winery here.
So he's talking about the DOC, the DOC, obviously.
I've never heard it called the DOC before, but yeah, I like it. It's going to stick with me.
They call it the DOC and then the DOCG. So the DOC, the very first DOC actually in Tuscany is San Gimignano. Happens in 1966. It's a white wine region in Tuscany, which is really funny because...
Isn't it?
Tuscany is not known for white wine, but San Gimignano...
I don't know if I've ever had a white wine from Tuscany.
I'll see what I can do. But not long after, in 66, the same year, Vino Nobile becomes a DOC, and they get their status. They were also among the first DOCGs in the 1980s, and actually in 1980. But something happened, and that was the big problem with Vino Nobile, While other regions became famous, Nobile sat on its laurels. It thought, hey, we were the first to get our DOC. We were one of the first to get the DOCG. We must be special. And the problem is they just sat there on their laurels. But what I can say is the good news is they finally noticed that they, kind of screwed up. And they're now starting to really raise the bar on their wines. So what Francesco here is going to tell us is what happened in the 60s and the boom of Nobile just play the clip.
And the real boom didn't take place in the 60s and 70s. I think the real boom happened in the 90s. Because from the way I look at it, the 60s and the 70s were the two decades where most of the winemakers of the time, which were not real winemakers as we perceive, as we know, as they are today, were starting to develop ideas of bottling wine and making a commercial product. But the real boom, so the real explosion of this type of product happened in the 80s and 90s. With the 80s vintages, 1985, Sassicaia, 100 points by Robert Parker, which was, my father still remembers how that changed, but the wine was released in the late 80s. So the real boom happened in the 90s.
It's interesting that you talk about a region resting on their laurels, and this is something I've said many times over the years that we've done this podcast, and I haven't had to say in a while, but there's just so many people who get into this business thinking that it's Field of Dreams, that if you build it, they will come, that, you get a little bit of street cred and people come. But, if nobody knows you exist, you're not going to move any product.
Yeah, that is the problem, right? And the same thing happens, I think, all over the world. You know, Tuscany, if you open a winery, everybody thinks, oh, go move to Tuscany, open a winery, and people will flock to it.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people talking that they want to go to Tuscany, they want to go to Italy, they want to go to wineries, but you still have to make a name for yourself. You still have to, shill, you still have to plug, you still have to talk, you still have to show up at tastings, you still have to do all kinds of things. And, somebody like yourself who did start a small wine company, you realize that it's not just, people are not knocking on your front door and saying, hey, where's my pig's fly?
Yeah.
You have to go to restaurants, you have to go to tastings, you have to go to markets.
You got to do the social media. You got to talk to other journalists. You got to solicit people to talk about you. It's a lot of work.
So it is not just the Field of Dreams.
Okay, so you poured the wine into this glass when we hit clip 1. The nose is incredible. It's got a lot of density to it. Can you set this up for me a little bit before we dive into it?
So this is the 2021 what they call now Nobile di Montepulciano. It used to be called Vino Nobile. They want to start giving the name Nobile to it, so that because it just means noble. But they want to give it an identity that is not just this long Vino Nobile di Montepulciano.
Oh, you mean Prosecco Superiore, Valdobia Dene, Canadione?
And I believe they kind of want it. Sooner or later, I believe they're going to drop the Montepulciano part.
Yeah, because it's confusing.
Because it's confusing as a grape. So they want to get Nobile out there as far as the name goes.
Simplify your message, control the message.
So 100% Sangiovese.
Yeah.
Poliziano is one of those really great producers of the area, and the wine 21 gave us some really great acidity. You're getting that Sangiovese acidity all over this wine,
and it's got a lot of the I describe it as tomato stemminess. It's like I said, this is very dense. It's a lot of cherry, dark cherry, ripe red cherry, and the dancing it's a bunch of cherries dancing in a tomato garden.
There's a lot of sour cherry in here as well. The austerity is really good.
But the tannin is very fine. This is definitely a wine that should probably spend a bit more time in a cellar. But if we were to bust this out with I'm sorry, Michael, I'm cooking some fried rice tonight. just to keep it simple. But I'm really feeling like I should have done like a simple pasta, like a pomodoro or a arrabbiata.
So this would have been great with that. Some simple meat, something like that. Now we heard Francesco talk about Robert Parker. Of course, he's invoked in any wine conversation these days.
Yeah,
and it just happens, right? Parker is mentioned.
I think we need to be kinder to the legacy of Robert Parker, and it's kind of our own fault as wine consumers that we let that take over the world, juicy, jammy wines.
Well,
but
I think you're right. We've got to we had, I guess, wine had to go to that extreme before it would come back, and somebody was going to have to cause it to go to that extreme, and Parker just happened to be that guy.
Yeah.
So Francesco was not totally ready to throw Parker under the bus, nor did he really want to look back, but instead look forward at the future of Nobile.
We're kind of going back to the so-called tradition. Like one other thing that I didn't mention is we're all kind of getting very clearly aware that very small barrels, like barriques, for instance, and new oak barriques are not really working well with Sangiovese. They're overshadowing the Sangiovese too much. And this is, I think, a widespread thing that most wineries in Montepulciano have learned.
I don't think it's just Montepulciano. I think it's all over Italy.
All over, yeah. So that's one thing that it's taking place hugely around here. So yeah, we're sort of going back. My father started making wine. To be completely honest, he already had international varieties within the vineyards at the time, but they were really sporadic and small percentage. But the experimentation with the international varieties happened in the 90s. So my father started off with the big casks, not that because he liked it, because he didn't have money to buy the small barrels. So he started off in that way. Now we're kind of going back there. But climate is fundamentally the real game changer.
Now, how many times have we heard that from anybody? Climate is the game changer these days. And it's everywhere. Like it's surprising that, you used to have to ask people about climate change. Well, how is climate change affecting you? Now it's just automatic. Any interview you have, it's the winemaker now who's bringing it up. They know that it's happening. They definitely know, especially if you're in agriculture.
Yes,
you know that it's happening. And now they're just and they know that the public knows. So they are very upfront that climate change is our biggest problem.
Interesting.
It's interesting because I was talking to Charlie Pilateri at his winery about climate change. Just a brief conversation. I kind of was talking to him in 2025. I said, "How is it going to affect?" And he said, "It's not the heat that's affecting Ontario; it's the cold."
Yep.
Winters like this that are.
We just had another minus 20 snap.
So that's the biggest. That's our biggest problem. So anyway, Francesco brings up a good point in the next clip I have for you. It's about food choices. So I figured you'd like this.
Awesome.
And how they're helping to dictate wine style.
If you talk to my father, he wasn't, because if you say. If you wanted high scores by Robert Parker, you had to put maturation, extraction, and so on. But I think that was also the type of style that everybody liked at the time. Like I see it in my father. If it's is it Bordeaux or Burgundy? For him, it's Bordeaux. Still today, that's the style he wanted to embrace, no matter what it was, Robert Parker or not. Now. It's the general opinion of winemakers, people working in the field, is to go kind of against it, but it's a composition of things. Maybe one thing to always bear in mind is in Milan, 50 years ago, you would have ossobuco, which is it's a steak, very very heavy steak, twice a week. Now, if you have it once every 3 months, it's regular. So now you tend to have more salad. You tend to have more finer fine dining, and it's inevitable that you're never going to be drinking Bordeaux from the 90s with salad.
Great. Now I'm craving ossobuco.
Ossobuco? Yeah.
And like he is correct in like talking about and it's very like timely that, because I know you recorded this interview almost a year ago, but him talking about the Italians like pulling back on a cuisine they would have had a couple times a week, because like ossobuco is beef shank, which is
Braised
a cheaper,
beef shank, yeah.
crappier cut of beef, but the price of beef has gone cuckoo bananas. Like right before we hit record on the podcast, I took a look at my my beloved La Cocos flyer for the week. And when I first moved to Hamilton in 2021, we would have full beef briskets going on sale for $3.99 a pound, and now the sale price is $6.99, and it's nuts. And I had I'm a prairie boy through and through. Did I tell you lately I'm from Saskatchewan?
Yeah, you haven't said that lately on the podcast,
but
so I'm glad you said it now.
We do steak Sundays, like usually like twice a month. In the summer we might do steak Sunday like for an entire month. But to buy like a rib steak on sale and a couple of small tenderloins for Anya, it was $50.
Yeah, it's expensive. Beef is expensive. Salmon is expensive. I love a good piece of salmon, and that's not cheap a pound either. So
yeah, so I mean, there's that, and I think just sort of the impact of, I've also said this before, like the farm to table movement is not a movement. Like the farm to table has become sort of a fabric of our society, and it's been amplified with the elbows up movement. And I think if there's any positive thing that's going to come from the current situation with the United States, it's going to be the fact that people are going to be more mindful of what they eat. People are going to eat probably a little healthier. I know it's always a challenge when we see a spike in grocery prices that the pantry staples that are higher carb, higher processed are generally the more affordable options. But as it pertains to wine, I think we're heading in a right direction culturally, right?
But he's also talking about how people are drinking less in a way, right? The ossobuco would definitely, tell you I need a bottle of wine. Yeah. Obviously, that is not the case anymore. You're not drinking as much, so the ossobuco isn't coming out as much. Prices, it's like a spinning wheel that just
But I mean, it's a trend, right? Like things do trend in a certain direction, but it is, I think, a positive thing with what we're seeing with people drinking less, like across all generations, is one of the biggest problems in North America is that wine has never been a part of the dinner table. Like wine's always been an occasion and always had a taboo attached to it. But thanks to the hard work of people in BC, people in Ontario, with the wine industry, the restaurants that we work with in Toronto, is celebrating wine as an agricultural product is becoming more prevalent as a message to the general public. And Michael,
it might be something to discuss later on.
Wait, sorry, I might throw up in my mouth a little bit. I'm about to say something nice about the LCBO.
Oh, hold on, I'll get a bag.
With their shitty glossy catalogs that they put together, they're often featuring pictures of vineyards in Ontario and talking to the farmers and talking to the winemakers. So unfortunately, LCBO deserves a little bit of credit in helping to celebrate wine as an agricultural product.
Do you need the bag?
No, I think I'm good. Oh, okay. Okay, now that that's over with, let's move on.
All right. André, we would not be having a discussion about wine if we did not talk about the younger generation and their seeming aversion to wine. We've kind of hinted at it, but Francesco himself is 27 years old. He said it multiple times in the interview, and he has a different take on what is happening in Italy with that generation.
It's kind of like, every new generation doesn't like the generation before and tries to go against it.
Damn that rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly.
Another question, since you're 27, which is the thing, which is a big thing now in the wine world, is why don't the 20-year-olds drink wine?
Personally, very optimistic. I think if you're drinking wine at 27, you're odd. I'm a winemaker, and I live in a wine region, and I don't live in a random wine region. I live in the most dense area of Tuscany, where you just find a new winery every 200 meters. So So for us, wine it's a big, very essential and important thing. And I can tell you that people my age around here drink wine. Abroad or elsewhere, it's a little bit different. But I think wine has to be tackled with logical thinking, with a big wallet nowadays.
Unfortunately,
yeah. So I think it's wine just naturally provides a initial selection, and that's I think the only reason why people in their 20s are not yet tackling wine. But I believe that everybody will grow and everybody will be bored of just drinking gin and tonic constantly. So they will eventually start tackling wine. And one thing that I can tell you is that the few people of my generation which are now starting to get involved into this field, because of what we discussed earlier, the next generation always does something different from the previous. I can already see it in me as well as in my sister or other early 20s, early 30s new producers. We communicate wine differently. And I can tell you that it's way easier for me to convince somebody who's in his 20s to drink wine or to try to approach it, because I know the way of talking to them. So
how do you communicate wine?
Yeah, you try to be funny and very simple. Very simple. What's important is very, very simple. Yeah. You don't try to overly concentrate on both technicalities as well as geographical locations.
He does go on to say that making people feel comfortable about their decisions and opinions is a must.
Oh, I agree with that fully. And, one thing that's been bothering me about the whole, crapping on the 20-year-olds who aren't drinking wine, I'm even thinking about my own drinking habits, is, Francesco hit the nail on the head in the middle of that clip where he talked about you have to bring your wallet. So it's one of the byproducts of what's happening with the wine world right now is people are drinking less but drinking better. And to drink better, you need to bring your wallet. I mean, we've talked about the career change on this podcast so many times. What was better for me when I was 28, 29, I would venture that, $20 was a lot of money at the time, but that could still get you something decent. But, a wine like even Montez Alpha, and God bless Aurelio Montez, the experimentation they're doing and really pushing the line on Chilean wine, that is a mass-produced wine. Right,
but it's a very well mass-produced.
It is, but I guess the point that I'm just making is when we talk about decline in sales, and we talked about food and wine earlier to this. People are drinking better, but also people are eating better, and I've never seen anyone segment this demise of wine drinking by category. Right, is it wine across every segment, premium, ultra premium, so $30, $50 and up, or is it just the entry level? Because, I would bet you that we're seeing a larger drop off in entry level because young people are sick of being marketed to. Young people can spot authenticity a mile away. And if you're making, Snoop Dogg mass-produced Plonk, is that wine even still available at the LCBO, or was it a flash in the pan that people went and bought it because, for shizzle my nizzle? We love Snoop Dogg at the time, but, a fantastic face on a bottle is only going to sell you the first bottle. If the wine's shit, no one's going to buy a second bottle.
First of all, I believe it's an American wine, so it's not going to be there. So thank God for that.
All right,
okay. But the LCBO, they had a dream, I think 10 years ago or more, where they wanted to try and push people higher in the wine prices, and everybody just kept forcing the wine prices down. And now this is the dream of the LCBO, that people are buying over $20 bottles. And I have not wandered through an LCBO lately to see where the $15 to $20 bottles are hanging out. So I'm a little bit lost on that one.
And if that was their goal, they've failed miserably.
Absolutely, they failed.
I just went up to the Waterdown LCBO, which is a store that I've wandered to once or twice, just because we don't have a really great flagship store in Hamilton, which is also another failure on the LCBO's part. But I went to there with with $50 in my pocket, celebrating a friend's belated birthday party, and I was just like, you know what, I'd love to get like a really nice bottle of French wine, like maybe, you know, like a Côte du Rhône or some entry level Burgundy that's at a decent price, and the selection at that LCBO is typically good. When I walked by their display case, like there were like 4 different wines in it, and that was it. And yeah, like the selection was just crap. So like, yeah, there's a lot of like $20 bottles of wine at the LCBO, but the variety is terrible these days.
I'm glad that Mr. Soleas is leaving, and I hope the
door doesn't hit him on the way out.
The new guy coming in has a plan, because they need one, that's for sure. So I do want to talk to you again about this wine, because it has changed while it's in the glass, but while we're retasting it, Francesco was talking about the changes in Vino Nobile wines. Now we've been down the road a little bit with climate, but now we get a little bit deeper into what Poliziano is doing.
Not within only Poliziano, who has been in the last 10, 12, even 15 years only and exclusively planted and replanted Sangiovese. So we have, my father has done a lot of experimentations with Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, particularly over the mid-90s. But ever since the very early 2000s, he stopped, and he started shifting his focus back to Sangiovese. So our wines carry more Sangiovese. Asinone is nowadays 100% Sangiovese. We made the new Le Cagiole wine, which is 100% Sangiovese. Our regular Vino Nobile, which was highly blended back in the late 90s, early 2000s, is now almost purely Sangiovese. So the style that is changing within Poliziano as well as within the denomination is firstly going towards the purity of Sangiovese, which inevitably makes some changes to the wines. And then I guess from a climate perspective, what we are seeing and experiencing is, warmer and warmer climates, which leads us to make, or rather approach the grapes that we harvest differently. It's no more the case of doing 4 or 5 pump overs every day as my father used to. Bear with me, that's a funny story of my father. He would do 3, 4 pump overs every day, and he always told me after the second, maybe within the third day, he starts seeing some color coming out from the vats. Whereas now, as soon as you do the first, not even the full pump over, after 10, 15, 20 seconds of pumping it, you start seeing some color. Because the grapes are just naturally much more ripe. So this makes inevitably the wine different. And you have to, given this raw material, tackle fermentation, aging completely different. And this inevitably changes in the glass. 25, 30 years ago, the wines they had way more acidity. The pH tended to be lower. And probably the grapes were not as ripe. So you had very, very astringent tannins and very, very almost breaking your teeth type of acidity. So those wines were, I don't want to say undrinkable in the first few years, but very difficult to drink. Now it's the other way around. The tannins are way smoother. The ripeness is either overripe or perfectly ripe. So no green tannins. The tannins tend to be actually very round, very mature. The acidities are lower, the pH are higher. This brings some negativities as well, but overall the wines tend to be more approachable, that's for sure. We're living in a moment where Vino Nobile from Montepulciano is more drinkable than ever.
And André, I can fully attest to that, because when I used to go to Nobile 10 plus years ago, you dreaded the day of tasting because the acidity and the tannins were so harsh. But now, what we have in the glass, what do you think of the new style of Nobile?
My glass is empty.
Twice.
Yeah, that's actually true. Short pours, to be honest, because we're podcasting. But this wine was approachable from the onset. The nose was very inviting. I said earlier what my tasting note was on it. Now that I've gone through, I guess what would be equivalent to a good 4 or 5 ounce pour with both glasses I've gone through, I can feel the tannin in my cheeks, which is really lending to the cellarability. But, we talked about food earlier. What can help round out that tannin in your mouth, avoid the buildup of tannin? Really nice tomato sauce. So I'm sold. Like I would buy this in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So the wine is lovely. Poliziano is one of those producers in the area that is not just historical, but are making great wines. But as of 2025, they have a new level of wines in Nobile called Pieve. And for those familiar with, say, Chianti Classico, think Gran Selezione. That's kind of in the vein that they are going with.
So just call it Gran Selezione.
Nope, they got to call it Pieve, and here's why.
The project started as a broad idea in somewhere close to the early summer of 2020, where many producers have gathered and tasted, not specifically Sangiovese from Montepulciano, but Sangiovese from all over Italy, so not only Tuscany as well. And that is the period of time from early May, if I might recall, all the way to the end of September, where we tasted and we started kind of, brainstorming things. So maybe we were not all completely aware of what to do and what was the right way of going in the 2021 vintage, which was just 1 year later. Because throughout the 2021 vintage, we were way more aware that the Pieve was an imminent possibility, imminent new type of wine that we could have created. So you'll find out over the next years. The 2022, probably 2023 will be a little bit more difficult because it was a difficult vintage for the denomination in terms of quantity and other things. But 2024, 2025, you'll see more producers approaching and trying to tackle the wine, the new wine.
So that's kind of a little bit of history. Now we get into what Pieve actually is.
So Pieve, it's fundamentally a way of subdividing the denomination of Montepulciano based on several factors. Of course, the most obvious, it's concerning the word itself, Pieve, which means church.
So it's all church parishes.
That's correct. Yes. Wine has always been, and alcohol in general has always been interlinked to churches, monks, and that does not only apply to Tuscany or Italy, but kind of Europe in general. So there is this connection, but I think that is the probably less important thing. Not from a cultural perspective. From a cultural perspective, it's very important, but from a tasting perspective and a wine perspective, is probably the least important. What's truly crucial is the combination of geology, of temperature, and basically terroir in general. So basically, each Pieve, each subzone should underline a common way of expressing possibly a wine within each Pieve. For instance, Poliziano specifically owns hectares in 4 different Pieves. We tend to cultivate and ferment our vineyards almost singularly. So every single parcel is treated independently from the budding all the way to the aging. So it's something that we will inevitably keep on building. Every year, every producer will learn something new. The wines in every vintage will show their own characteristics, and over time, the common profile, which has already been built from a general perspective, will continue to be more detailed and articulated.
So that's the project. It's subzones, which is basically, if you think about it,
yes, the Burgundy model.
it's cru.
Yeah.
We're talking about
And
crus.
I like the fact that the Pieves, like they're working with 4 Pieves, and he called it that. It's like it seems a little, I'm happy when I see regions not using the exact terminology of Burgundy, because we know the cru system from region to region is already complicated enough. But I don't know. I think it's neat. I'm looking forward to potentially tasting one.
Well, we'll get to taste one. Hopefully, this is going to be the second year where we go to into Pieves when I get there. So we're going to actually, and more wineries are jumping on board for this. That's the exciting part. Now, we started this podcast saying that Nobile has lost its way, and this is the way that it is trying to find its way back into our hearts and minds and the glasses of wine lovers. But
Pieve, it's not only learning about our denomination in more details, about our own terroir in more details, but it's also about relaunching the perception of our denomination. Vino Nobile is the first DOC and first DOCG of Italy, and we take a lot of pride of that. We are an historical denomination. We should be world known, but we don't perceive ourselves as world known denomination, and we want to be back. We want to increase our perception, and one of the ways of doing so was to also think the Pieve as a higher quality product, which inevitably has to be more priced, has to be a little bit more expensive than the regular Vino Nobilis, than the Reservas or the single vineyards that we currently have. So the well priced, as in higher priced than all the other wines, because we want the market to perceive and to understand that we can make better quality wines that should be paid more.
Makes sense to me. I mean, make sure you're offering value for money. But, one thing we've learned over the exploration over the past year is, one of the reasons Bordeaux is hurting right now is because their wines are so astronomically priced. They're not accessible to, a typical consumer. They're certainly not accessible to a 27-year-old who wants to learn about Bordeaux. So, keep your prices in line, make sure the market can bear what you're making, make sure you're selling through your product. And, I think it's the other thing that younger generations, millennials and, Gen Z and whatever the next generation, when they start drinking, are looking for is a unique experience. So there is a huge opportunity here for them, I think.
Well, I think, as you talked about, a unique opportunity, but not only that, but it's a unique sense of place.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that Bordeaux is kind of lacking, is that they have large vineyards, the wine comes from those vineyards. When you talk about Ontario, and I'm bringing it back to Ontario, then we started this, subzone in Niagara, Short Hills Bench, the Beamsville Bench, St. David's, blah, 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 blah. And then suddenly we started talking about Wismar Vineyard and Foxcroft Vineyard, and all the more you can bring things down to a smaller and smaller place, the more you're going to pay for a bottle, because you are drinking wine not just from the place, but a specific individual spot, and that's really what Pieve is about.
But make sure it's approachable so that people can develop the following. Like, I in 2017 went out of my way to get every bottle of the Lowry Vineyard Pinot Noir from all the producers who did it. I had to pay for a lot of the bottles. The most expensive bottle I bought was $80. I think there were about 10 bottles on the table. The full project cost me less than $600, and it's something I would do again in a heartbeat. That is accessible to a younger generation who are looking for a unique experience.
And it's because you were trying to drink the wines, try the wines, collect the wines from a place, very specific piece, a specific acreage.
So there we go.
So that's Poliziano. That's Pieve. So I hope we get a chance to taste some. You get a chance to experience the higher version of Nobile.
Well, I can just say that the bar is already very high, because I don't want to speak ill of what we've got in our glass right now, because this is the Poliziano Nobile di Montepulciano. Wait, that's...
Nobile di Montepulciano. And it's
solid.
2021.
Solid wine.
So, of course, Patreon. We spoke to Francesco. You heard Krister's voice in there, friend of the podcast.
Yes, he is.
Obviously,
he called me a sharp dresser.
He did. He said you were a very sharp dresser. I don't want to get into why. He just said you were very sharp, and that I know some very sharp dressed people, and that's how I know who my friends are. But that being said, if you go to Patreon, you're going to be able to hear the complete interview with Francesco, and he gets into some very interesting stuff. I want to thank Francesco for being on the podcast. I want to thank Poliziano for giving us the time. I want to thank Vino Nobile who allowed us to, have time with Francesco. I want to thank, funny enough, Noble Estates, which is the same way that they spell Nobile, but it's Noble Estates who gave us the wine for this podcast.
Funny. It's funny because on your script you wrote it as Nobile. That's not how they spell it.
Oh, that's right. Yes. So I was so into Nobile that yes, it's Noble Estates, and I spelled it the wrong way, but that's fine. I understood. You understood.
I'm André Prue from AndreWineReview.ca at André Wine Review on social media.
And I'm Michael Pinkus of MichaelPinkusWineReview.com, the great guy on most social media. Thanks very much to everybody, and good night.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Two Guys Talking Wine on iTunes.
Two Guys Talking Wine is produced by Adam Duran and Ken Little.